Saved from Sudan, British diplomats are airlifted from danger. They were evacuated from the fighting overnight, but other UK nationals remain stranded.
Safety and protection of British nationals in Sudan remains a priority for us, a top priority for us.
Also tonight, one of Labour's longest-serving MPs, Diane Abbott, is suspended by her party. And running to time, the London Marathon finally returns to its spring slot.
This is ITV News with Paul Brand.
Good evening. Diplomatic efforts to end the conflict in Sudan will have to continue from afar this evening after several countries, including Britain, airlifted their nationals to safety. The UK embassy in Khartoum is now closed, with staff and their families evacuated from the capital overnight. The Foreign Secretary said diplomats had become the latest target of violence in the country as other British nationals remain stranded. Neil Connery reports.
As the fighting in the Sudanese capital continues to escalate, British diplomats have been evacuated from Khartoum. They and their families were taken to an airfield outside the city and flown out of the country in a British military operation.
In response to escalating violence in Khartoum, and because of specific threats and violence directed towards diplomats in Khartoum, we have taken the decision to temporarily close the British embassy.
The battle for power between the paramilitary Rapid Support Forces and Sudan's regular army has already killed hundreds. The British operation involved forces from 16 Air Assault Brigade, the Royal Forces and Royal Air Force. But British nationals who remain in Sudan are desperately seeking safety. Saeed's family have been trapped in Khartoum. His sister was interrupted by gunfire as she gave this update.
Airstrikes are terrifying. They will kill indiscriminately, and the RSF are kind of going into... Do you hear that? So that's basically what it's been like, and then every once in a while there'll be like an explosion.
His family are now on a bus heading for Egypt.
It's harrowing. Every time you speak to them, there's shelling in the background, there's bullets in the background every single time. It seems to me, and I'm no expert, that if everyone is making a big fuss of evacuation now, it tends to mean that the situation is going to get worse.
The Prime Minister praised the bravery of British forces and said work is continuing to ensure the safety of British nationals in Sudan. Neil Connery, ITV News.
One of Labour's longest-serving MPs has been kicked off the party's benches. Diane Abbott had the Labour whip suspended this morning following remarks she made about anti-Semitism. She's apologised for the letter she wrote in a Sunday newspaper, which denied that Jewish people and others experience racism. Our political reporter Amy Lewis has more.
Diane Abbott should, arguably, as a Labour veteran, know this is the one toxic issue the party wants to avoid.
Have you been trying to silence victims of anti-Semitism, Mr Corbyn?
Anti-Semitism within Labour led to the downfall of her ally and former leader Jeremy Corbyn. Now she's been suspended by a party wanting to stamp out any suggestion it's anti-Jewish. She wrote, "Irish, Jewish and traveller people undoubtedly experience prejudice. This is similar to racism, and the two words are often used as if they are interchangeable. It is true that many types of white people with points of difference, such as redheads, can experience this prejudice, but they are not all their lives subject to racism."
Well, I think it's this idea there's some hierarchy of racism and there's some hierarchy of hate, and somehow, you know, the hate and the racism that's undoubtedly been visited upon black people, both in this country and indeed in many other countries around the world for centuries. That's terrible, that's appalling, but, you know, why set that up in competition against the atrocities of the Holocaust?
Concerns that anti-Semitism was on the rise during Jeremy Corbyn's leadership led to the party being found guilty of acting unlawfully by the Equality and Human Rights Commission. The current leader, Sir Keir Starmer, suspended Corbyn from the party and last month blocked him from standing as a Labour candidate at the next general election. The party say Diane Abbott's comments were deeply offensive and wrong. She has apologised for any distress caused and will now sit in the Commons as an independent MP, pending an investigation. Amy Lewis, ITV News.
The government says it will learn from this afternoon's mass test of an emergency alert system. Millions of mobiles rang across the country from just before 3 p.m. this afternoon. In future, the alarm will be used to warn of life-threatening situations. But some phones failed the test, as our correspondent Rebecca Barry explains.
At a Sainsbury's in the southwest, it didn't stop the weekly supermarket shop.
Play has been paused just for the emergency test alert. It will resume straight afterwards.
At the World Snooker Championship, it tested the players' patience. With some confusion at the crucible as the alerts seemed to go off at different times.
It might be an idea if we all just switch our phones off for the rest of this session.
It interrupted Sunday lunch at this pub. But the mobile network 3 says some of its customers didn't receive the alert, and it's working with the government to resolve it.
There was almost a sense of excitement here as most people's phones went off. Others were disappointed that theirs didn't. Mine received the alert. It reads, "This is a test. In a real emergency, follow the instructions to keep yourself and others safe."
If something really did happen, why wouldn't I have gotten an alert?
Do you find it reassuring or worrying?
I'd like to know if there was going to be a bomb alert and we needed to get under the table or go to the basement or something.
Eventually, the system will warn people of life-threatening events like a flood or wildfire. The Deputy Prime Minister denies it's an example of an overreaching nanny state.
Well, countries across the world, for example, I think of the United States, Japan and elsewhere, have an emergency alert system. It's just a test, but in future this could be the sound that saves your life.
The government insists it's effectively completed the UK's biggest public communications exercise and will now learn any lessons. Rebecca Barry, ITV News.
Sport now, and the FA Cup semi-final between Manchester United and Brighton has gone to extra time at Wembley. There were no goals in normal time between the two Premier League clubs, although David De Gea made some spectacular saves in the United goal. Extra time is now being played. The winners will face Manchester City. In the Premier League, a humiliating match for Tottenham. They crashed to a 6-1 defeat to Newcastle, who scored 5 times in the first 21 minutes at St James's Park. It means third-place Newcastle move 6 points clear of Spurs in the race for a Champions League place. And Arsenal look well positioned for a place in the Women's Champions League final. They fought back from 2 goals down in Germany to hold Wolfsburg to a 2-2 draw in their semi-final first leg. Finally, there was a spring in the step of London marathon runners this morning as the event returned to its April slot. Among them, Kenya's Kelvin Kiptum, who ran the second fastest marathon ever. He completed it in 2 hours, 1 minute and 25 seconds, a London record. Double Olympic champion Sifan Hassan from the Netherlands won the women's race in 2 hours and 18 minutes. And organisers expect more than 45,000 runners to complete the course by the end of the day. Well done to all of them. That's it from us. We'll have the late news at 10:05, but until then, have a very good evening.
Today we'll see warmer temperatures moving in from the east, especially around tea time. Heinz no added sugar beans sponsors ITV National Weather.
Hello there, very good evening to you. I hope you've had a lovely weekend, and if you've just finished the London Marathon, Many congratulations. It certainly has been another fairly disappointingly cool, wet and windy picture, and I'm afraid it continues to be the same as we look ahead to this evening and overnight. The bulk of the rain moving away to the east, but another lump of it moves in across Ireland and increasingly into the western fringes of Wales. Elsewhere, there are some clearer breaks, and here we could see temperatures falling low enough for a touch of frost, particularly across Scotland. That cold northerly wind really starting to dig in as well, and that will be noticeable as we start a brand new week. So despite the fact there will be some sunny breaks in places, it's a relatively showery sort of day with this lump of rain slowly scooping its way eastwards across the UK with noticeably heavy rain mixed in there as well. Temperatures, as I say, disappointing for the time of year, particularly when you add on that cold wind as well. Sorry about that. See you later.
Heinz no added sugar beans sponsors ITV National Weather.